Welcome in, everyone. This is NerdCamp. I'm your friendly neighborhood podcast host, Steve-O, and this is my intro video to talk about what is NerdCamp and what to expect out of this podcast. So thank you for hopping in, whether you're listening to this on Spotify or anywhere else you listen to podcasts, or you're watching the video on YouTube. I appreciate the support. It would be awesome if you can give me a like, subscribe, follow on whatever platform you're listening to. Make sure your notifications are on. I'll be launching one video a week or one episode a week to talk about all types of things that are considered nerdy. So the way I envision Nerd Camp with a few of my friends is sitting around a virtual campfire. So when you were a kid, if you ever went camping with your friends or family, as you sit around the big campfire, you just have fun conversations out in the wilderness. Everything's kind of just chill. I wanted to bring that here in a virtual form. So I'm going to have guest stars on. We're going to have completely unscripted episodes where all we know is the topic, and we're just going to have a fun 30 to 60 minute conversation about whatever that topic is. So a few examples is my very first episode is going to be a podcast episode on Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon Season 1. I'll be bringing that to you by myself, but that's just going to be like a recap. We'll talk about it, what has happened so far in Season 1 of House of the Dragon. We'll talk about what I'm excited for in Season 2. I've never read the book of Blood and Fire, so I'm hoping for certain things to happen, but I actually have no idea what will happen. So I'll have a whole podcast episode kicking things off on this channel for that. Later this year, in August time, we'll talk about fantasy football, why that's considered nerdy, and why so many people, both men and women, love participating every year. We'll have a whole episode near end of November time regarding musicals. We have Wicked the movie, the musical in movie format, coming to theaters. And then here in Los Angeles, we actually have Wicked the musical hitting our Pantages Theater. So we'll be able to talk about the two sides, movies going into musicals, musicals going into movies, compare the two, have a deep dive conversation with a few of my friends who are musicals fans, and dig into that. Around the same time as San Diego Comic-Con and Los Angeles Comic-Con, I'll have a few episodes talking about collectibles. As you can see here, I'm a big fan of collectibles, specifically in the horror genre. I have a bunch of signed memorabilia, we have some props, we have pins, we have a bunch of other cool stuff displayed. So I'll go deep into a conversation with some people, talk about why collectibles are kind of been brought back on the radar for a lot of people, what fun things you can do at these Comic-Cons or different events and conventions and functions that may go on in your town or nearby. We're going to have a podcast episode all about board games. My buddy Nick and I have a board game company separate from this called Bald & Board Games. So we'll come out here, we'll talk about games we're creating, we'll talk about games we've played, our favorite board games. We'll probably dive into video game talk in that as well. And then, again, throughout the year, if there's any movies, TV shows that are releasing that anyone's interested in or that are popular enough, we'll bring that and we'll talk about those. And then the final thing is, we want to make this interactive with you guys as listeners and viewers. So if there's anything you want us to talk about, you're like, hey, I'm a fan of such and such topic. I want to hear you guys talk about it. I want to see your opinions on it. Toss us a message on our YouTube videos, either this video or any future video. Give us an IG message. Send me a DM. My Instagram is NerdCamp13. Anytime I post videos on YouTube or post the podcast episodes on Spotify, I'll post a little snippet on Instagram as well as other posts on Instagram throughout the year. So you can send me a DM to be like, hey, I love this topic. Can you give me some content on it? And we'll try our best to make that happen, add it to the schedule. And again, think of nerdy as a whole umbrella. Don't just think of like sci-fi and fantasy movies as nerdy. Think of anything that you can have a fun, enthusiastic conversation on. I know one of my friends has a Instagram and TikTok account regarding food here in Los Angeles. So when she comes on, we'll literally dive into a full discussion on food. Why people like sweet foods, why people like salty foods, what foods are good for your budget, especially living in a city like Los Angeles where everything's more expensive. What little hidden gems can you find that have really good food at a respectable cost point? So we'll have a whole episode on that. And then I'm really excited for an episode talking about travel. I love traveling the U.S. and traveling the world. I spent 3 weeks in Europe last year. I'm going to Tokyo and Seoul for 3 weeks next year. So we'll definitely have a whole episode with a few other people who also love traveling to talk about some cool places to visit if you travel overseas or traveling in the U.S. Maybe some cool national parks, things like that. So stay tuned. Every week we'll have some fun episodes. I'll post on Instagram a few days before that episode goes live on what the topic is. And I hope everyone, again, like, follow, subscribe. We're excited that you're going to be here. I know I have a bunch of guest stars that are excited to be able to talk about what they love. And I want to talk about what you guys love as well. So this is NerdCamp. I'm your friendly neighborhood podcast host, Steve-O. And I'll see you episode by episode.